It is Indiana in the Morning, presented as always by First Commonwealth Bank here on AM 1160 WCCS 101.1 FM. As the commissioners prepare for their visit here this morning, they're shuffling papers over there. Imagine there's a lot of paper shuffling goes on in the commissioner's office,
Indeed.
Isn't there? The commissioners, Mike Baker, Rod Ruddick, and Shireen Hess are with us here this morning. And the last time you were all with us, you were talking about an upcoming trip to Washington, D.C.
Absolutely, and we're here today to, among other things, tell you a little bit about what happened on that trip. We went last Wednesday to Washington along with a contingent of other county commissioners from around Pennsylvania. The Trump administration is planning on hosting all 50 states' boards of commissioners, and Pennsylvania was chosen to be the lead-off state to do that. And when we got down there on Wednesday evening, had a meeting with our CCAP folks and people from the National Association of Counties. And the following morning, after a short tour of the White House, we had about a 6-hour meeting in which representatives of all aspects of the Trump administration came in and presented on many different topics. We had, just to go through them very quickly, we had the Office of Management and Budget, Small Business Administration, we had NASA, all the different departments, Health and Human Services, Transportation, Education, Department of State, Interior, Agriculture, and the EPA. They were all on hand there. And it was a very great and robust discussion. Right from the very get-go, commissioners, not only from our county, but throughout the Commonwealth, expressed their concern over the possibility of the loss of community development block grant funding, which has been zeroed out in the administration's budget proposal, and that could have a very serious and detrimental effect on projects for the county and municipalities all across Pennsylvania. And so we pressed them pretty hard for not to take those funds away from us, and we're going to be following up with them on that. I wasn't especially impressed that they were getting that message. I don't think that they really brought much of a commitment to us that those would be restored in the final budget. So we have to be very vigilant and diligent to make sure that we follow through on our pressing the administration not to take those away. So what I'd like to do here this morning is having had such a big meeting, just kind of pass it off between all three commissioners to talk about what we had an opportunity to do. But I do want to tell you that, and I spoke to you about this whenever we first came in, that when the meeting was over and we went outside to do some photos and so on, we kind of staked out the West Wing there. And because we saw Vice President Mike Pence's motorcade there, and the place was kind of crawling with Secret Service, and I think we were kind of making them a little bit nervous or something, but at any rate.
Yeah, once they get a look at Hess there, they say to themselves, here comes trouble.
Well, we kind of had an instinct there that the vice president might be coming out pretty soon, so we kind of staked the place out. And sure enough, in about 10 minutes' time, he came out and was getting into his car, and we shouted the poor guy down. And he came over and was just enormously gracious and pleasant with us, shook everyone's hand, greeted us, and, of course, we took an opportunity to get a photo op on that as well. So that was one of the highlights of the trip that had nothing to do with the actual meeting itself. So
Commissioner Ruddick, the cynic, might say to himself, a meeting such as that, they might have come in and then said to all of you gathered commissioners, okay, we're going to tell you what you can do, and we're not going to give you any money for it, and go home. Not quite that way, was it?
No, you did very well.
That
Todd,
was
in
excellent.
summarizing. I was going to start my comments much like you just made your comment. They came in with an open mind, but a very tight wallet.
it was like he was in the room.
Oh, my goodness gracious. But I think we were pleased that they would take questions from the audience. We asked a lot of questions, like Mike had said. We challenged a lot what they had to offer. I'm just going to go over a couple of things I think are key. And this is coming down from the National Association of County Commissioners, but it's an impact that is going to affect all Americans, and that is the federal government right now, Congress, is pushing to eliminate as a deduction what we pay in state and local taxes here in Pennsylvania. Now, if you think about that,
Double taxation.
that's double taxation.
That's right.
It's against the law. They're proposing it, and they're doing it, I think, to ring in $1.3 trillion in 10 years. And we said, that is not going to work, and we're going to fight that to the bitter end.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it was that's the one item of interest that I think we were really very, very concerned about. The second thing I would tell you is that the theme of the whole process was, I think, infrastructure development. Yet at the same time, every time they mentioned something about infrastructure, they would say, we want, though, counties to have skin in the game, which means they want us to spend more money and they want to spend less money. So we recognize that. But we did voice our concern about some things. Predominantly, we talked, and I raised a number of questions about what are we going to do about broadband in America, in rural America. And you could sense in our audience that everyone is feeling that frustration. There's no sense of movement anywhere to improve the quality of life in the rural sectors of America, and certainly that's true here in Indiana County. So that was loud and clear. Now, the response we got on that was that's going to be a high priority of the president. He's already made some movement to encourage some of the national vendors to get on board to help sort of kick this off and move in the right direction. So we were excited to hear that. The third thing that I would raise is I raised at the meeting to Bill Kirkland, who is sort of the overseer of the project for the county commissioners. And I told him, and I had spoken to him early before I went in, so he knew I was going to ask this question. It had to do with veterans. And I'm very happy about some of the changes that have happened in regarding to veteran benefits and veteran support. And in fact, here in Indiana County with our medical treatment facility, which we worked hard to get, I'm very happy about that. Yet I don't think that's the best answer that we should be moving forward on. I really would like to see that we take the Veterans Choice Card, which is available to veterans who do not have the capability of getting to a medical clinic or hospital within 50 miles, to be able to use that particular card to go to any servicing agent to help them in their medical need. If we could just expand that to every veteran and go to their local hospital, that's where the treatment is the quickest, that's where the treatment is most assured, and that's where the travel distance is minimized.
Yeah.
And I was pleased to hear that that's on their radar scope, and they are pushing to make that a high priority. And the last thing I would say is more from a standpoint of reading the paper this morning, headlines in the paper. Allegheny County Activist Group is looking at election machines. They are looking for a machine that has an audit trail, a paper trail, so that they can properly verify and audit votes after they are cast. Certainly, if they would have listened to Indiana County about 10 years ago, they would have been where we are, and I just was glad to hear that they're moving in the same direction that Indiana County has done for the last 10 years.
Well, we are a leader.
So I wanted to just throw that in. It's good to hear that kind of a discussion.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Commissioner Hess, you, of course, were with the contingent in Washington as well.
Yes, I was. Good morning. And it was a great and a unique opportunity to meet directly with the federal government. You know, in local government, we don't operate in a vacuum. We, of course, depend greatly on the federal and the state contributions to our local economies. And it was, like I said, it was a unique opportunity. Now, the one thing I would say is there was not an opportunity to offer any critical analysis to what was being told to us. That said, it was the information was very helpful, and I really did appreciate the talk about the infrastructure development. And of course, the devil is in the details on these kinds of things. How are you going to pay for it? And the notion of privatization of a lot of our infrastructure is an interesting idea. There's certainly an appropriate role for the public, for private, operations in that. But again, devil's in the details on that, and how is it going to be paid for? We all want tax reform, but as my colleagues alluded to, the way that they are proposing to pay for that is to take away a very important deduction for a lot of middle-class families. It would affect Indiana County greatly. We talked a lot about regulatory streamlining, and there were folks from the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Interior, the Department of Energy, and a lot of work of those kinds of agencies that have done, as we all know, a lot of have actually implemented a lot of ideas on streamlining their regulations, and have going through a lot of talks about what they do propose to do. I do think that there's always room for reform in just about every aspect of things, but balance is the key. So that was my takeaway from it. I thought it was a really unique opportunity, but it was very one-sided in a lot of ways. So I would like the opportunity to have this was part of the Intergovernmental Affairs Task Force. That is a bipartisan task force. So it would be great to have an opportunity to have a little bit of back and forth.
Yeah.
Don't know how if that will happen, but again, really great opportunity. There were about 60 or 70 commissioners there, so about a third of the total Pennsylvania contingent. So it was,
Two observations. One, it's interesting to me that all 50 states are going to get a chance to go before this group, and therefore they're going to hear the same thing from all of these other groups, I'm sure. And two, I'd be interested to hear from the three of you your reactions, and we only have 3 minutes left of the hour, your reactions to after the session, when you were able to talk with other commissioners from around Pennsylvania, what you were hearing from them in regards to what you were feeling about the meetings. Did they pretty much share what you were feeling, or were there other viewpoints?
I would say this, that the commissioners that I personally spoke with, particularly those from rural counties like Indiana, came back with some of the same takeaways. There's a little bit of a difference between what some of the rural counties have taken away from it as compared to, say, the Philadelphias and so on, where, well, as Rod alluded to earlier, he's talking about broadband and so on. That's not a problem down there. But for us here in Indiana, Armstrong, and some of the smaller counties, it's a big, big problem. So some of our priorities might have been a little bit different from their priorities, but I think all in all, everybody is pretty much on the same page, knowing that we need to expect to see some changes in funding and spending plans and budgets and so on coming out of the federal administration, that we need to be very we welcome change, we really do, but we want to make sure that it's in the best interest of the people, and I think people across the Commonwealth came away with that.
Yeah, I'm not guessing anybody came out of that thrilled with the idea of double taxation of income. So, well, there are people who pay no income taxes. They probably wouldn't mind. Just like with the broadband issue with the cities that have it, I don't mind because I'm not a part of that. I don't, and to use the term that Rod used a few moments ago, I don't have that skin in the game. But for most of us, any of us with a conscience, we can't see the idea of double taxation being a good thing in any way.
Yeah, I think that was a predominant issue that most of my colleagues were raising. I think we came back with a better feeling about the openness of discussion, but I think Shireen is correct. We've got to dig into the details of all the comments that were made. And they avoided really directing their thoughts to our lobbying agencies, which is NACO and CCAP, which we belong to. The invitations we received from the White House came directly to the county commissioners. And so they're engaging us differently and uniquely than what we have had in the past. We have more of a direct link to each of those departments than we've ever had before. And the gentleman, as I mentioned before, Bill Kirkland, seems to really have the kind of personality that will engage it. And so hopefully over a period of time, and after they get done with the 50th state, they'll probably look at things a little bit differently than they're looking at them right now.
Yeah, I'm afraid they're going to be finished with the film. You're finished. Thank you all for coming to visit
Thank
with
you.
us this
Thanks for
morning.
having us, Bob.
We appreciate it. It is Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank, and it's AM 1160 WCCS and 101.1 FM.